Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Touching moon while touching lives. It is something that is very important for us to remember about the genesis of the space program. When Vikram Sarabhai envisioned the space program, it was very difficult for him to talk about going to moon, Mars or human space flight in a country where we were talking about many other serious problems. But then he was very convinced about the need of starting a space program in a nation, an emerging nation at that point in time, because he believed that technology can really transform a society. It's not only just societal transformation, but economic transformation. And its impact will be counted, measured much later. I would like to give you a little bit of those elements when I continue my speech. But then over the journey of the space program the last 60 years, when we were just launching small rockets from Tumba, when people were already touching the moon, I think the gap that existed between us and the people who are able to go to moon were very wide. It was something that need to be bridged over a period of time. I think all of you know that the space technology is something that you can't buy or rather acquire just with the association, but you need to develop the knowledge and skill within the system, within the people, within the organization and institutions. And that's what the great nations did, the Americas and Russias, when they were in the Cold War time. They put investment of huge magnitude to create that capability. For us to do that over a period of time was very tough, very difficult. It took long years to gather that capability, building rockets on our own, building propulsion systems on our own, building spacecrafts, launching them, but with the support of many people in the world who supported in developing engines, building spacecrafts and instruments and electronics. I think we have reached a level that the gap that existed during the early ages of our space program has substantially been bridged, to the extent that we are now talking about going to Mars and achieving the mission very first time ever, a nation to do that in its first attempt to go to Mars and then orbit a spacecraft around Mars. To be the first nation to go to moon and land on the southern side of the moon. I think all these are indicators of a certain amount of capability today. But we have no doubt on the fact that the investment that we made in the space program has benefited the society, touched the people. I think many a times people don't realize how it impacted it. And we have commissioned recently a study with some of the consultants to understand and measure what exactly was the impact of the investment that we made in the space program in the society. Not only society, in various aspects of it, in terms of economy, in terms of job creation, in terms of overall the societal impact in different sectors, let it be the agriculture, the security, the natural resources planning, the administration and governance, digital connectivity. If you look at all these sectors, how it really contributed. Every rupee that we spent on the space program till its genesis to now, if you count, it produced an economic impact effect to the tune of 2.5 times of that. That's a measure that has come out recently. It has also created an economic value of the net worth of that. It's in tens of billions of dollars equivalent. And it also has created jobs and employment opportunities for lakhs of people, direct and indirect. It also created support systems for fishermen, for agriculture, the crop forecasting, natural resources planning, disaster avoidance. For example, one of the measure of the lives saved, the number that was given is almost 2,500 lives saved. In the recent catastrophe, it was with space or without space. And also the number of people who have been relocated in the occasion of such cyclonic or other disaster events based on the space-based data were in lakhs. Such were the measures. I don't know whether you will be able to put those numbers in monetary terms. It will be quite difficult. Now coming back to touching the moon, it's equally important to think about space not just for creating those societal grassroots impact, but also to create an impact in the mind of you people. Many a times, the impact that you create in the downstream are not even understood by people. It's very difficult for you to understand how important it is to map the entire water bodies of this nation. They are in lakhs. Map them, to understand them, to create the database of it, to understand how much water comes in, goes out, how is the stability of it, how are the rivers, how to find out where the underground water is there. All this data possibly common public may not ever know, and its impact also may not be ever known. But you all understand the impact that it creates when Chandrayaan 3 touches on the surface of the moon. I think you understand it a little much better. But then taking steps to go to moon and do an exploration mission is always difficult, because there will be questions asked. Any decision maker of the policy maker in the government tries to say that you invest hundreds of crores to build a spacecraft to go to moon and land there. The questions will come, suddenly will come, what for you are doing it? And what is the return? When you bring some rocks from the moon, is it going to change our economy? It's going to give so much of impact to us. This is the immediate question that will come to the front. No? So it has always been a reluctant journey for us to identify some missions to go to moon or Mars in the past. It has always been difficult. It was difficult choices. So when a choice was made to go to moon in 2000, maybe in 8, I believe, that made a decision to make the Chandrayaan 1, it was a very momentous occasion. Though we were good in doing scientific missions ever since we started launching satellites, there were some of the other scientific probes or experiments or instruments on board many of the satellites. To have a dedicated exploratory mission going to moon was very difficult. But then it changed the course of the journey later. We know that Chandrayaan 1 was the one which made an object to touch on the surface of the moon impact probe. It did fantastic measurements. And from the outcome of the Chandrayaan 1 is that we know today there is water on the moon, right? And we know that many people have gone to moon, they have touched on the surface of the moon, but we never found out that there is water molecules on the moon. Today we know there is abundance of water on the moon. The post-scientific experiments and evaluations done using remote sensing and in situ measurements confirm that there is water on the moon. And this came out of the Chandrayaan 1. We followed it with Chandrayaan 2. The landing on the moon was not happening at that time. In the soft landing could not happen, but then we did not leave it. The Chandrayaan 3 happened in 2023, touching the surface of the moon in soft landing, and not only touched very well with extremely lower velocity than we anticipated, but then all the experiments, all the 5 experiments that we planned on the Pragyan rover as well as the Vikram lander, all went very well, and we had collected enough of data. And data has also produced some of the scientific findings, which are very, very important. Possibly you will know about it also on 23rd of August. We are going to release the data to the public now. Till now, this last 1 year, the data has been with the PIs or the science coordinators or the instrument developers. Now this data is going to be in the public, the researchers who want to make use of this data and create their own value for it, to create publications out of it. And that will be done on 23rd August 2024. But looking beyond Chandrayaan 3 is something that all enthuse us, to excite us. What you have got to do beyond this? Just now we made an impact of touching on the moon, but the journey beyond this is more important. And space has different dimensions today. And one of them is its ability to provide the communication, remote sensing, timing, and other services, which are regular capabilities that we know today. I think this need to expand in the coming days, because the need of this country is very wide. The space sector is serving certain part of the nation. Even today, we know that it has not penetrated into every element of the society. Still, there are unexplored areas and domains that it has to go. And this is one of the important topics. We also have to invest more in space sector. And all of you know that the type of money that we receive today for space program is substantially a lower percentage compared to many other nations having full-fledged space programs. We need to find ways to invest more into this. And while we are investing, there must be a reason for doing this investment, why we should invest, and where from the return of this investment will come. And of course, I talked about it that in the past years of investment, how it created an economic impact. But in coming days, there will be questions asked. Who is going to invest, and where is the economic outcome out of it? And this need to be properly calibrated while we do it, and where from the investment should come. And this is an important topic that we are discussing, whether it should be done from the government or from the private or from the business revenue creation process, whether it will sustain itself. And we also understand that space program has its own strategic elements. I think launching capability is one of the strategic capability that every nation should be very proud of. And one thing that we knew today, that we have an ability to build satellites and launch it from our own soil using our own rockets. It's not a small capability, and it is not available for many. And you know today that the capabilities are limited to only a few nations or collectivity of nations. I think this is something that we need to sustain, thrive on it, and work on it to improve it, make it more cost effective, make it more accessible, so that we will be able to do much more missions. But equally important is to inspire people. And unless you inspire through the space program, there will be no people coming and joining space program. And also to work in high technology areas. Simply showing them that in the last 60 years, we were able to bridge that gap that existed between those spacefaring nations and us is an example that it is possible for us to bridge the gap exists between us and many other technological progresses in other sectors as well. You look at the electronics, you look at the medical area, or in many other areas that value-added processes are happening in technology sectors. It is important for us to have strategic programs on bridging that gaps to build up to a nation to the top positions among community of nations. I think this is something that the message that space program has to give. For that, there is a will and a desire by the government today. I think all of you know that today in 2020 we had a space sector opening. And this space sector opening was followed by the new policy, the space policy of 2023, which delineates the responsibilities of each of those entities, the Department of Space, ISRO, the InSpace, the NSIL, and the non-governmental entities. Today we know that whatever we have created out of the public money in ISRO is actually belong to you, for you to make use of. The knowledge, the technology, the facilities are all accessible to people who want to develop in India. And this has to happen. I think this also has to happen, and we need to create value for the work that you are doing, creating in terms of exploitation of the capability, whether to produce downstream activities, applications, and how to create revenue out of it. It's very important. And we should also find a ways by which these NGOs find it profitable to operate. And this is also equally important. It's not possible for you to invest in money in building all this capability and don't get a revenue out of it. And where from all the revenue will come? And this skill is more in private companies rather than institutional organization like ISRO. And we need to make use of their brilliance, their capabilities. And today we know there are space companies, startups, and the all established companies willing to do that. 200 plus startup companies are there in space sector. It's an indicator of the changes that are going to come. Today, India is a startup nation with 1.5 lakh startups in many sectors. And we are just a small set of startups in space, 200 in the last few years of time. I believe that it will grow much bigger. They will grow in various sectors. There will be some in the building of the rockets, some will be in the building of satellites and technologies, and many more in the application sector. And the application sector is very, very important. I think this is something which I would like to tell you people who have an aspiration to become an entrepreneur, to work in space-based applications. And this is an open call to each one of you to understand where are the possibilities and who are the examples that you can actually emulate, looking at their success stories. And young people, when you celebrate Space Day, it's important for you to understand the type of possibilities. And some of them who got inspired in working with us in ISRO, left ISRO and started companies. I think all of you know them. I have always been mentoring some of those my colleagues who were with me in my rocket development, went back and developed some of the interesting rockets, the Skyroot, the Agnikul, all belong to that class. Today we have at least 5-6 companies building satellites, and at least 3-4 of them have already launched the satellites built in India, with some of the non-technologies sourced from India, but of course some came from outside. But over a period of time, those components can still be done in India. We are looking at big companies going to invest in creating that infrastructure of building rockets and satellites. And this is something that we are looking for, very important. It's just not startups that you can change the whole ecosystem. It's for the big players need to come into this sector. For example, providing satellite-based services. We need to invest and create that basic infrastructure of having satellites so as to provide various support services in communication, remote sensing, etc. So there are programs and plans being put forward by InSpace, how to create that type of ecosystem. One of them is the creating an Earth observation constellation with the support of the government. And we are also looking at bringing the data which is available over the last so many years. 30 plus years of data is archived with us. And we would like to make this data available to the public. And you can download and use this data free, resolution up to 5 meters, all the remote sensing data, and then make value out of it. And the new data that's going to come also will be available. And value-added products and services can come out of this remote sensing data. And these models have already been experimented and proven successful in Europe and other places. And we would like to make use of such models here as well. Another area is the navigation. I think all of you know the positioning, navigation, timing services that the Navic going to provide, both in strategic sectors and civilian sector, is very, very important. Of course, the primary role of Navic will be in the strategic sector, but we would like to make sure that it comes into the civilian sector. Of course, with the subsequent launches of Navic satellites, which will happen, all your mobile phones will be enabled to receive Navic signals in the civilian domain to help you, in addition to the other GNSS services. And it's important to provide such an accurate services because our Navic is a regional navigation system, not a global one, which has a better accuracy and assured signal capability than many others, which will be proven in due course of time. I'm very sure about it. But beyond this, in the next 25 years, we have a vision now in the space sector to scale up the economy of the space activity from the current 2% of the global space economy to something like 9-10% in next 10 years of time. From the $9 billion of worth of space activity that is happening here to be expanded to something like 40-45 billion of US dollars equivalent. If that has to happen, many of these small elements need to be connected, bridged, create such an active ecosystem along with the governmental support in creating more inspiring programs like the Human Space Flight Program, creating the program to build space station and supporting microgravity research, also working towards sending an Indian to the moon by 2040, as already announced by our Honorable Prime Minister. All these steps are inspirational elements, but while we do work on all this, we also work on our capability enhancement. We work on the research in various fronts, in cutting-edge domains of materials, technologies related to space, knowledge creation in various sectors, and sharing it with each one of you. And this is a mandate that has been given to ISRO today. And we are committed to develop that type of capability to make India a stronger, powerful nation, not through space alone, but through many other sectors which will take inspiration from what we are doing in space sector. Coming together of various people in this country will really trigger this passion, interest in young minds, prepare you to take up challenging tasks and responsibilities in the way ahead, identify where there are potentials to create new job opportunities, new ventures, new ideas, new innovations, and help us to grow stronger, powerful, and a safe country. Thank you so much and wish you all the very best for this opportunity given to me.